To defeat an enemy, you must know them. Not just their battle tactics, but their history, philosophy, art. Welcome to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to
The Chiss Ascendancy.
episode 45.
45.
I was waiting for you to do that. Okay, let's just jump right into this because it's going to be a doozy. Watch that first step. It's a doozy. If you guys haven't seen Groundhog Day...
Groundhog Day feels like an end-of-the-year movie, but it's a beginning of the year movie because
Yeah.
it takes place
On Groundhog Day.
on Groundhog Day.
It does kind of feel like a Thanksgiving-y, right in the niche with...
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I knew you. R.I.P. John Candy.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a classic monologue.
So, today is episode 45, and today we are reviewing From a Certain Point of View, celebrating the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
And I would like to say that it's a befitting tribute to The Empire Strikes Back, which is has some of the most iconic moments of Star Wars, that we just want to give our condolences to Star Wars fans across the world and to the family of Mr. David Prowse.
Yeah.
Who passed away, played Darth Vader in episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Iconic.
And I obviously never met him, but everyone that I've read that had met him said that he was as loving to his fans as the fans were to him. Which you get that very rarely,
Yeah.
Not that I'm not a fan of Harrison Ford, but like they say, like the Harrison Ford kind of guy wants to be left alone. But Star Wars has some real gems out there. You have Ray Park, who's a huge fan of the fans. Mark Hamill's very, very sweet guy, and so David Prowse was that kind of guy. So may the Force be with him, and we're gonna miss him. And he played the most iconic villain of all time. Just a little something. Just played Darth Vader, no big deal. And it's cool because if you ever listen to the recordings or to the film before they edited in James Earl Jones's voice, it's cool because he has kind of a West English, Scottish accent kind of going. So Scottish Darth Vader is a whole different kind of scary and an entirely different level of angry, I'm sure. But rest in peace, Mr. David Prowse. And so I guess we'll dedicate this episode to him. So we'll jump right in. 40 short stories.
Yeah. So, some of them short, some of them not. Some of them were longer than they should have been.
I would
and
like
some
to
of them
say,
were shorter
though,
than I would have liked. If the whole book was Hunger, I would have been here for it.
Oh, yeah. So, oh, man, that would have been great. The longest from previous Certain Point of View, from A New Hope, was the Clue-Horn Cantina Caper. Ugh. And I still have PTSD and I see choppers as I say that. But that was the one where they were looking for the Clue-Horn. And literally someone talks in that voice the entire time.
I forgive you, Mark.
And it was like 15 minutes or something ridiculous.
It was like upwards of an hour.
But the longest thing in this book was a fantastic story.
Tooth and Claw.
Tooth and Claw about Bosk.
Yeah.
But we'll get there
It was
eventually.
a great story.
So we're going to go through all 40 and just kind of give you our quick thoughts on it. And then at the end of the episode, we'll give you our top 3. Sound good? All right, here we go. The first story is called Eyes of the Empire, which is written by Kirsten White. You like that?
Such an idiot.
What?
Anyway,
What's wrong?
on to the Eyes of the Empire.
It's about probe droids and
makers of probe droids.
A young lady living out her dreams through probe droids.
It's basically the probe droid version of Honey Boo Boo, where the mother's living vicariously through the life of her daughter. Just saved you 20 minutes.
There you go. It was okay. It was pretty good. You have to realize there's going to be 40 stories in here.
On a scale of 1 to 3, I give it a 2.
Okay.
Which is the second to last thing I wanted to hear. But
So we're going to rank them 1 to 3.
I was just using a joke from The Office.
Oh, okay.
Erin's like, on a scale of 1 to 3, how attractive do you think I am? She's like, a 2, and she's like, that's the second to last thing I wanted to hear.
That's very funny.
It's a great moment.
That reminds me of when we were growing up, Dad said, Josiah, you can't believe everything you read on the news. I was probably like 6. And I was like, okay. And he goes, during the Cold War, there was a race between an American and a Russian. And the American won. And
So the Russian killed him.
the Russians, the Americans put out the story. America won the race. This is how the Russians wrote it. They said, Russia takes second place in the race, and America takes a shameful second to last. And he was like, they were telling the truth, but they made it sound like they won. And I was like 6 years old, and I was just like, like having a seizure trying to figure out they're the same thing.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
So anyways, yeah, Eyes of the Empire by Kirsten White is basically a young lady who is, like you said, living vicariously through the probe droids.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of starts a theme that we'll touch on later about people who are in the Empire that don't want to be in the Empire, and we are not here for that.
Yeah, I'm not here for that at all.
Long live the Empire. That's how I feel. All right, number 2.
Hunger, which was... I had to pick my top 3, and this was an honorable mention for me.
Do the sound.
Do what?
Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh, mama. This was an amazing story. Here's the thing. I am a lifelong fan of Wampas.
I was thinking of you. There's a very short story at the end of it. It's kind of just like a joke story. It's called The Will Strike Back. I was kind of disappointed with the direction they took it because I expected something deep and forcey, and it was just a joke about the starting crawl for Empire. But there was the part where Mark Thompson's character said, all right, this is the part where the Wampas attack, and...
Jonathan Davis is the other reader.
And he goes, well, and he's like, you took out the Wampas? And he goes, there's one. He's like, there's one Wampa?
Yeah. That's how I feel.
Yeah, so I was like, man, Josiah's feeling that in his soul right now.
With where we are in The Mandalorian, things are wide open for a Wampa to show up.
Oh my god.
I think about that daily. Hunger is about the Wampa that faces off with Luke, and you find out that he's the father and husband to a clan of Wampas, and he's just doing his dang job, just trying to go out and provide for his family.
He's basically the Wampa version of that one guy that's the main character in Sister Wives. Just trying to provide for his brood.
Yeah, except for it's not weird and gross in this instance. So that was a good one.
I wasn't even planning that. That's just off the cuff, man.
That was pretty good.
Mark Oshiro is the author of Hunger.
Yes, Mark Oshiro is the author of Hunger.
And I'll be keeping my eye on his career with great interest.
Yes.
Because that was a fantastic story through the eyes of a Wampa.
A Wampa. So, Wampa is my favorite species as non-sentient species, I guess. They're considered semi-sentient, I believe. But they're my favorite creature. So, like rancors and such.
Right.
These are my favorite. And so, it's a cool story because it's very primal. It gives you, obviously, seeing things through animal eyes. But you find out, or at least the way I took it was that the rebels moved into Echo Base, which is where his family was. Mm-hmm. And so he has a little freak out moment and then gets out and he finds Luke and he's starving and he's trying to find his family. So he's not necessarily, obviously he's a wild animal.
Well, and what I like is that I don't like things that are whitewashed. Mm-hmm. So it's cool to see something that's so primal. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just reactionary. There's nothing strategic about it. He's hurting because of his family, and it's cool because it's like exploring those as new emotions, new sensations.
Yeah, hunger.
So
he was gonna kill the Tauntaun and Luke and eat them to hold himself over to try to find and feed his family. And also, it was read by Sam Witwer.
Yeah,
which we need him to read an entire book.
I would like him to read more books.
Stat.
He did
great. All right. A 3 out of 3, I would say, if we had to rank it.
I like that the story starts, by the story I mean Empire, with Luke chopping off a creature's arm and then somebody cuts off his arm. So round and round we go, somebody gets their arm cut off.
You reap what you sow, Luke. Your fault. All right, here we go. Number 3, Ion Control by Emily Skrutsky.
Skrutsky?
Yeah, whatever. It was okay. I don't remember hardly anything about this story.
It was the one with the girl that was in charge of calibrating the cannons to shoot.
Oh, correct.
The ion.
Torin Farr, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. That was a pretty good one. It was... Torin Farr is kind of a niche fan favorite, because it's like Leia gets all the love, but she was also there to make a Black Series figure for years ago. The story was okay. It was good.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Number 4, A Good Kiss by C.B. Lee. My least favorite story. I'll just go out there and say it. It's my least favorite story. And I'll tell you why. It was just real weird. And this was the first of a slew, or maybe not the first, but this one really lathered on the anti-Han Solo sentiment. And I'm not here for that, buddy.
I like
am
that towards the end
Soloist.
of the book, that everybody was so focused on Luke that everybody forgot to hate Han.
Yeah.
Towards the end of Collection's short series.
Yeah. Han Solo kind of got the short end of the stick in this
I would agree.
book.
I would agree.
Because Han's character in Empire Strikes Back is fantastic. Mm-hmm. And it's the most character development you get from Han. And in A New Hope, he's kind of a butthole the whole time, which obviously is one of the reasons we love him is because he's a jackwagon. But other than the very end, coming in and saving Luke's bacon and going, yahoo! There's not really character development from Han, Empire is the one where it's like, I gotta get out of here, I got a death mark. You know what? He still cares about Leia. Let's get her out on the Falcon. Mm-hmm. He's still figuring things out. He's trying to, patch stuff up with Lando. While they're on Cloud City, there's a lot of character building going on with Han. And so I thought that he should have gotten more love. And so, anyways, this one's about a kid that's not good enough at literally anything, so his job is to run coffee to people on Hoth.
He does a darn good job running that coffee.
So he knows the way that they make it cool is that when the Empire strikes back, there's all kinds of pathways that are cut off, and so all the rebels are like that bug at the beginning of Bug's life that's I'm lost. So he's like, I know how to get there to the tunnel and all that kind of stuff. But it was real strange because it was very anti-high school athlete feel. Very I was picked on vibe from this author. I don't know C.B. Lee. I never read anything by he or she. I don't know. Yeah. That's kind of an ambiguous name. So, anyways.
We had a kid that we called CB in junior high, except for CB stood for Chunky Butt.
Oh my God! You're the Han Solo this person's hurt by. You're the reason this story sucks.
In my defense, the person who gave him that nickname initially was his own dad, so we just hopped on that train.
Is that the dad that gets knifed to death in the part 1 of It? Oh my God. So, anyways, it was okay.
Good old Chunky Butt.
So the one thing that I think is kind of off the beaten path a little bit, but.
Yeah, why not?
The character is...
only 4 stories in.
Yeah. So, the main character in the story is gay, and he's very awkward about it, and he doesn't like that Han and Leia get to have their romance out in public because they're attractive, so I guess this guy's not attractive. And it was weird to me because at the end of the story, spoiler alert if you're going to read this, there's this guy that he likes, and... Okay, so the whole story, he is complaining and and moaning about Han being like too out loud with his suaveness, when he turns to Leia, you could use a good kiss. Mm-hmm. And he's like real butthurt about that. Like, how come Han Solos of the world get to talk that way to their people they're interested in, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the story, he says to whatever the guy's name is that he likes, you could use a good kiss, and then kisses the other guy just on the mouth, obviously. And then here's the term that I take offense to, okay? It says, and to his surprise, he kissed back. And I was like, are we not going to talk about if anybody else would have done that? How they would have been brought up on charges? Nobody else? A little rapey, but whatever. My least favorite story. Continuing on. This was a cool one. Number 5 is She Will Keep Them Warm by Delilah Dawson. I should have known because Delilah Dawson writes good stuff. This is about the...
Hey there, Delilah. Good story.
Are you from New York City? But this one, She Will Keep Them Warm, was very cool because it was about the matriarch Tauntaun that they...
Who had a bad day.
Yeah, had a bad day. They bring her into the
It's a
fold.
little morbid in this part of the book because you know how much everybody dies.
Yeah.
Especially these Tauntauns, R.I.P.
Yeah, anybody that's like, yeah, so this is so-and-so, and I'm like, this person's going to die. But it's really cool because it's live through her eyes and,
I also
taking
felt
care
really
of her
bad
brood.
for her when she was super excited to go with Han on the rescue mission. I was like, well, she will keep them warm.
Yeah. She was like, yeah, it was an honor because her daughter, I think, was being ridden by the hero of the rebellion, Luke Skywalker, and I was like, ooh. And she was like, but don't worry. She'll find her.
Turns out her daughter had a really good sense of smell, but a terrible sense of direction.
You smell something? So it was funny because it was like, she was proud of her daughter for going with Luke, and I was like, oh, it's not a good thing. And it was like, she'll find her. She's going with Han Solo, and I was like, ooh. But it was a good story.
Yeah, it was a great story. 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
2.5.
The next one is Heroes of the Rebellion by Amy Ratcliffe. Let's see. I cannot remember what this one was
I don't
about.
remember anything about this one. Sorry, Amy.
Oh, this was about the Rebel transport getting away. First transport is away. It was about that. I can't
It's
remember
like the whole
specifically.
first 12 stories.
Let's see.
I will say, it took us a while to get off of Hoth.
Yes, it did.
Quite a while.
Quite a while. All right. But it was pretty good. I remember thinking it was good. There's 40 stories. I'll give me a break. All right. Number 7 is Rogue 2 by Gary Whitta. This one was fun because it was about Zev Seneska. Mm-hmm. And basically...
I like how he created a betting pool and then won it for himself. Mm-hmm. Brilliant.
Bet on yourself and win every time.
Yeah.
So that was very cool. I really liked the feeling of he talked about being Rogue 2 and being proud of that because nobody would ever take the Rogue One call sign again. And speaking of Rogue One...
Yeah, I've got a little bit of bone to pick.
A little bit of a beef, guys.
Because they kept making it feel... Well, in this story in particular, basically they said the Rogue Squadron was named after the Rogue One mission. Mm-hmm. Which we all know not to be the case. But I guess they could horn it in.
They retconned it, yeah.
But my other thing was that... Everybody's making it sound like Jyn Erso is the great poet saying that rebellions are built on hope when everybody ought to know.
Cassian said it first.
Cassian said it first.
Yeah, Cassian said it to her. She's the
Cassian's
person who...
the real hero of the rebellion.
Yeah, she's the one that just says it out loud, secondly. You know, like Cassian leans over
She's like that kid in the Key and Peele sketch.
Yeah.
When, what's his name?
It's either Key or Peele.
No. The Mexican comedian. Something about Fluffy. I don't remember his name.
Oh, Gabriel Iglesias.
Gabriel Iglesias comes to school and like they repeated the joke and he's like, "That's my joke," and he's like, "Hey, it's not cool when you take credit for other people's stuff." And he's like, "But it was my joke."
Yeah. It was crazy because
that's what Jyn Erso is.
Yeah, it feels like they were in a meeting or they're at lunch and Cassian leans over to Jyn and goes, I know that there's, all we have is hope, but Jyn, you gotta think about it. Rebellions are built on hope. And Jyn was like, and don't forget, the rebellions are built on hope. And everybody was like, woohoo, Jyn, we're gonna write a story about it. Yeah. And not only...
Oh, you know what?
Was that...
I remember Heroes of the Rebellion now.
Okay, what was it?
About the reporter.
Oh, yeah.
The woman reporter. That was doing all the propaganda for the rebellion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was a cool one.
Yeah, that was a cool one.
But yeah, I don't care that they say that Jyn said it because Jyn's the one that said it out loud in the meeting. It was just how often in the beginning of the book.
They said it quite a bit.
So, but Rogue 2 is really good. Story number 8. This one was kind of Kindle by Charles Yu, which is basically the story of the death of Admiral Ozzel, who is as clumsy as he is stupid.
This one was a reach.
This one was...
Somebody had stayed up late reading Dostoevsky and then was like, oh God, I gotta write that story.
This one was 12 minutes.
This was basically The Cockroach. I don't know if you've read that story. It sucks. It's like this one.
It was 12... Okay, so obviously we listened as much as we read. But if you're time-wise listening to the audiobook, it was a 12-minute story of about 4 seconds of real time when Vader's choking the dude out, and it's between the time he is choked out.
It's called The Metamorphosis, not The Cockroach.
Falls to the floor and dies. So the 12-minute story, which I assume to be 10 pages or so, is based on 4 seconds between unconsciousness and death for Kendall Ozzel. And it's like, he's running up a hill with the boy. And then 12 minutes later, it's like, the boy is him, Kendall. And I was like, okay, we all know that Kendall Ozzel is as clumsy as he is stupid. And don't try to give him a story.
So, The Metamorphosis.
Yes.
A guy wakes up as a cockroach. And then the story is about him coping with being a cockroach. And I got serious vibes of The Metamorphosis from Kindle.
It was a cool concept.
It was tired.
It was a cool concept, but you have to remember, this is the 8th story, and 2 stories in, I got life from the POV of a Wampa. So we needed to step it up if we were going to go up from hunger.
We didn't.
Against All Odds by R.F. Kuang, Kuang, K-U-A-N-G. I don't know if I'm doing it right. That was interesting. What did you think about that one?
King Kong. That's...
Okay.
R.F. Kong.
All right.
Kuang.
What did you think about it?
I'm still caught up on how to say his last name. Refresh me.
You refresh me.
I don't remember.
Here's the little synopsis from Del Rey. This isn't a drill. The rebel base at Hoth is under attack. There's a fleet of Star Destroyers coming out of hyperspace to blow them into oblivion. And somehow Dak Ralter feels more alive than he's ever been. It's about Dak. Remember?
Yeah, faintly.
It's just him talking about how good of a gunner he is and all that stuff.
Yes. This one was cool.
It was pretty cool.
Also, the same kind of dread from the...
As I'm reading
keep them warm, I was like...
Yeah, when it was like, Dak's having a wonderful day, and I was like, it's not going to last.
Feel like I could take on the whole rebellion or the whole empire by myself.
It was very cool because you see that Dak
is fun taking on the bottom of this AT-AT.
Yeah, the Empire was like, hold my beer. That's a pretty good impersonation of an AT-AT. I like to... Del Rey, I am open for discussion if you guys ever need a AT-AT sound guy. But it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I do like how...
I liked the mysterious background they gave to Dak.
Yeah. And I like that he was excited to work with Luke.
Yeah.
That was cool.
It was a great honor.
Number 10, Beyond Hope. He kind of got me with the... This is... I cannot remember. Man, I am so sorry. Do you remember this one at all?
I was hoping you would. Let's see what the internet has. What's the synopsis, ma'am?
Okay, it says, Crimson particle bolts scream through the air just over Private Iman Kref's head. Oh, okay. This one was... he was remembering... it's the older guy that... His planet had been overtaken by the Empire, and he was a foot soldier going against an AT-AT, basically. And the idea is, even if death is even if getting off Hoth is beyond hope, like even if your death is imminent, you're not doing it just for yourself. You're doing it for the galaxy. Yeah. Your home world was destroyed and ravaged. And maybe you'll die today, but you're a cog in the machine. You do it for others so that they can have hope. It was a cool concept.
Oh, no. Are we talking about Beyond Hope? Mm-hmm. Okay, never mind. That's fine. Let's talk about The Truest Duty.
The Truest Duty. Let's talk about this
3
one.
out of 3.
This one was a good story.
This was a good story.
This was a great story. Great story.
Love this story because I am a fan of people who are completely on board with their team.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the idea that everybody in the Empire doesn't want to be in the Empire. Sick to death of it.
Yeah.
First of all, most of the people there are volunteers. So they're not just going to
Yeah.
get a conscience all of a sudden.
I don't think that I don't necessarily believe that there's a draft for stormtroopers. That's why there's tons of posters
There's
that
an
say join the
academy.
Empire.
Yeah, I'm just sick to death of the idea that anybody who's a stormtrooper has qualms about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? They exist.
Well, also, here's the thing is that...
Hardcore Imperials exist.
Yeah. Well, the other thing we have to remember is that for all of its flaws, the Empire did do some good. Like, they did bring a structure to worlds that didn't have any structure. There were things that were positive about the Empire's influence on the galaxy. So, to say that, like, every character is... And this is kind of what we were kind of getting... You had the probe lady at the front of the book, and she started to see what the goal was to defeat, the rebels on Hoth, and she was kind of queasy about it. I'm just not a fan of that. It's a cool concept.
It was cool
right?
like the first 17 times, but the 18th time I was like, you know what? I'm starting to see a pattern here.
It'd be cool, like when Finn deserted, it was cool. But it's because it needs to be the dot on the white piece of paper. It can't be just a ton of dots and there's no paper left.
Right.
You've got to have some paper there
Anyway,
to
so
be the salmon that is going with the current.
this General Veers, Maximilian Veers, was
may start your
imperial
landing.
to the core.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Veers was Veers was super cool, and one of the things, and it was cool that we got to talk a little bit about David Prowse at the beginning of the episode, but I think that we're removed enough from the time when Star Wars was first in theaters that we forget how freaking terrifying Vader was when people first saw him.
Right.
I mean, he was on screen for like 13 minutes in A New Hope, and people could not stop talking about Vader. Like, that's how powerful his presence was. And so part of the beginning of this story is Veers was like, there's one way to do this, and the only way to get through this is don't piss off Vader.
Yeah.
Do exactly what you need to do every single time, and you're gonna stick around.
Yeah,
Don't fail him, and your life will be fine.
As much as all the rebels were fueled by hope, I like that Veers held himself alive out of sheer sense of duty to Lord Vader. He would not disappoint Lord Vader by dying.
Yeah, he was. So by the end of the story, he's in an
baller.
AT-AT that is compromised.
Yeah,
I think it's the one that
the
Luke...
one that gets crashed into with
Okay.
the speeder.
And so it crashes, and he's bleeding really bad, and he's fighting against unconsciousness, which obviously, right when something sinister like that happens to you, like, you're really fighting for your life. It's unconsciousness and then death, right? And somewhere in between there is Kindle. So
Wait, it wasn't the boy.
it was me. Of course, I know it.
Kindle. Wait, that's my name.
So it was cool though because he was like,
He is like this.
never mind of him. He was like, no, I have to survive because I cannot fail Lord Vader.
Freaking baller.
Oh, dude, that was freaking
I love
sick.
that story.
Great story.
Hard 3 out of 3.
All right, A Naturalist on Hoth.
I liked this one.
This was a good one.
I liked this one. It was a pleasant surprise.
It was a change of pace.
Because I was sick to death of Hoth, and I saw that story 12 was called A Naturalist on Hoth, and I was like, sweet baby Jesus. Another story about Hoth.
Get us
Kill
off of
me.
here.
Just make me one of those frickin' tauntauns. Just kill me now.
Just split me down the middle with a lightsaber and crawl inside.
Yeah. And so I was pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed that story. It was very cool. It was just, I don't know, it was a unique take on the Star Wars universe.
It's cool because, some of my favorite, from a certain point of view, stories are things that are characters that you get into their head and it's not dedicated to... I want to have characters that have something to do with the story.
Right.
But
I just like when Star Wars makes me feel like Star Wars.
Yeah, like the
I
running
can,
coffee guy. I was like, this doesn't feel like a Star Wars story.
I
You know
can
what I mean?
easily get in the head of another human being. That
Yeah.
doesn't trouble me at all.
But tell me why it's important to figure out why the glowworms are there.
Right.
Tell
I think
me
that
about
that's
the worms.
super cool. Just to explore Star Wars from a Star Wars point of view, you know what I mean? Like, you've got unique creatures, you've got unique ecology, you've got unique habitats, and to kind of explore that, I thought it was very interesting.
It was cool because this guy was his family lived on a planet that everything was just speeders, like speeders and ships and stuff. That's kind of what they worked on. It's, I would imagine, it'd be like growing up on Kuat, and it's like all we do is ships
Or Corellia.
or Corellia. And so he basically is like, but I was interested in biology and ecology, and because everybody else around me wasn't interested in those things, by the time I was in high school, I knew more about biology and ecology than my professors, and I kept going, and I was the best that there was, and he did feel a sense of duty when things started to go wrong with Alderaan and stuff like that, so he joins the rebellion. But it was cool because when they were finding out, it was cool because he was on the board of people who decided where the rebellion would go. Is it survivable? We want to go someplace that's really remote, that looks terrible, but can we survive? And so he's on the group that first goes to Hoth to see if it's doable to be there. And he basically is like, yeah, it's doable. And he was like, I might have lied. You know, if people start dying, it's on me. But I couldn't. He was enamored by Hoth and their ecosystem and stuff. It was a very, very cool concept. And when the rebellion leaves, he stays behind to continue his work.
Very cool.
So that was a cool. It was a little side trip.
Yeah. All right, let's pick up the pace. Dragon Snake saves R2-D2 by Katie Cook. It was a comic, and all I heard was sound effects and the chuckling of a dragon snake. I imagine it was very amusing.
Yep.
But I have no information for you other than that.
It's a comic.
For the Last Time by Beth Revis.
It was cool. I'll read you the quote from the little synopsis, and this kind of wraps up the whole story. There are two types of men, just as there are two types of power. The men who have been given their power, like a piece of candy to an obedient child, those men thought they were secure. But the men who took their power knew how to make a fist. And it was basically about Admiral Piet, and basically talking about how you have men who, brown nose and get up the ranks by being obedient, and you have people who are basically backstabbers, and they win by fear, but they live by fear, and that's how they stay alive. That was a cool concept. It talked about how when he walked in and he saw Vader unmasked, he almost started to feel pity for him, but he had to remember not to do that, because if he felt weakness toward him, it would kill him.
Yeah.
Cool story.
Rendezvous Point by Jason Fry.
This was a great one.
Wedge Antilles. One of the longer stories, but
one of the longer stories, but I really enjoyed it. And it talked about Wedge having to put together kind of the dirty dozen of pilots, because it was an interesting concept, because you stay with Luke, Han, and Leia in the movie, you don't realize the effect that their absence and lack of communication has on the Rebel Alliance.
And I thought it was cool. One, because you get to see Wedge step up.
Yeah.
Wedge seems to be an important character based on his relationship to Luke in A New Hope and an Empire. But his character really isn't expanded upon until we get into Rise of Skywalker. He kind of makes a re-entry. But it was cool to see him taking the leadership role and basically rebuilding Rogue Squadron.
Yeah. Well, he's
Luke.
He's huge in the books. And so you have A New Hope, and then he kind of falls off a little bit, and then he was in Rise of Skywalker. But for readers, especially Legends or Expanded Universe readers like myself, Wedge was a huge character in the X-Wing series and Legacy of the Force and stuff like that. Really, really cool. So it was cool to see him get a little bit of light.
Yeah. I enjoyed that
one. And the whole Tauntaun Musk prank was really cool.
Yeah.
So that was a fun one.
All right, The Final Order, Seth Dickinson.
It was okay. This one was about
Captain Cannon House.
Yeah, the Imperial that basically he tells people that he's a bigger part than he is in past victories, so that they respect him. And he basically, I guess he's realizing that he's preserving himself for himself's sake. He's not really loyal to the Empire.
Yeah. Which I'm fine with.
Yeah. I'm okay with inner turmoil. I don't like it when it's like, I don't even want to be here. Why am I doing this? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I enjoyed that story. It was a cool story.
It was a cool take.
It was cool to see the psychology that being in the Empire has on the officers. You know, they're constantly vying for position. They're paranoid of everybody around them. How is what they're going to do going to affect them in the long run? If they betray themselves in a sideward glance or, you know, a misspoken word, how would that affect them? It's just kind of cool to be in that headspace. It makes you feel really tense. You know?
Yeah, I did feel very tense. I remember I was listening to this, actually, I put it on a little speaker, and I was actually taking a shower, and I remember being like, I'm not relaxing right now. As I'm scrubbing my hair, I was like, this is tense. This is tense. There was a cool thing where he would go off on a rant about, this is why you do what you do, and this is why you obey, and blah, blah, blah. And then it would pause and go, but he didn't say that.
Yeah.
You know, it was about a guy making his way through the ranks by keeping his cards close to his chest and surviving, you know, thriving by just surviving. It was a cool concept. The next one, story 17, Amerikel's Rules for TIE Pilot Survival, in parentheses, probably, by Django Wexler. I didn't really care for this one.
I realize I haven't been consistently ranking these. I'll give it a 2. It was amusing. I don't really feel like it added very much. It was cool to see the asteroid field debacle from the point of view of a TIE pilot, wow. Or to think about, you know, what it would be like for a TIE pilot based on the build of a TIE fighter, how they're so bare bones, and I don't know, just that kind of stuff was fun to explore.
It was another one of the mushy, like, there was a lot of relationship stuff, there was a lot of, I don't know, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but it's like, I don't really care if stormtroopers have sex. I don't really want to talk about it. I just want to talk about fighting and whatever. I don't know, maybe I'm just old school.
I don't know, it just doesn't seem to, it seems to be unnecessary, but...
Yeah. Number 18, The First Lesson. This is about
By
Yoda.
Jim Zub.
Yep. When Luke gets to Dagobah. This was a pretty fun one. I love stuff, obviously, from... It was interesting because it's from Yoda's point of view, but it's not spoken from a first person. It's like a third person point of view from Yoda's point of view. Does that make sense? But it was fun. It talks about... I liked that a few times they talk about the familiarity of what it felt like to be around Luke, how similar it was to being around Anakin.
Right.
And that was very cool.
Also that he was watching Luke and he was seeing how, as he got to know him, he wasn't just Anakin, though. That he had some of Padme's presence.
Yeah.
And that it kind of reshaped Yoda's view of him even as he knew him. I thought that was cool.
It was a fun one. This next one is a doozy.
Yeah, this one was fantastic.
Disturbance by Mike Chen. This is a Force vision. Sheev Palpatine, the Emperor, is having a vision of who this Skywalker is. And without anyone saying it, he realizes who Luke is.
Yeah.
And the importance of, obviously, Skywalker is a name that's obviously... He would be like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. But the vision full-on says...
I heard that.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's you. You torso light bright. But he basically has the vision of if Luke did join with Vader and how powerful they would become.
Well, and I liked that it was an exploration of the statement that he's seen a disturbance in the Force. You know, that he knows.
Yeah, it's very interesting that the whole vision is... putting himself in danger, and all he says to Vader is, there's been a great disturbance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He doesn't say, I had a terrible dream, and I was killed.
I also like the callback to Tarkin, where they talk about the secret Sith shrine being underneath the Jedi Temple. I think that was a cool callback.
Yeah, very cool.
Nice deep cut for the fans.
Yeah, anything with Palpatine in it, I'm taking it.
Yeah, I'm all the way there for it.
It did give me a little bit of Rise of Skywalker vibes, because I wondered... just how powerful
Luke been.
And Vader tandem could have been.
Turns out very powerful.
Yeah. They really could have overthrown the Emperor.
Yeah, like Dark Luke basically backhanded the Emperor. No props.
Well, also, whenever you watch the movie, whenever Vader's like, we could overthrow him, there's a part of me that's like, it's still risky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the vision that Palpatine has is if Luke completely devotes himself to Vader... and they have the combined goal to defeat the Emperor, they cannot be stopped.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to need some kind of a comic or a book. I don't care if you want to slap a little Legends cover on there.
Yeah, it was.
But the two of them
It was
together would
very
have been
cool. I liked it
super
because
raw.
it, from any Star Wars book, I kind of desire. I need, to quote my nephew, I need something Forcey. You know what I mean? And this was just like deep insight into the world of the Force. So I enjoy that.
One of the cool
Wars book.
things when you read one of these short story books is you realize what your palette is of Star Wars. I don't give a crap about relationships. I don't give a crap about stuff like that. I don't really give a crap about hope. I want Wampas and death and fighting and force, and it can be light side, dark side. I love to get inside the mind of someone who's thinking with the Force, like Yoda or an Obi-Wan Kenobi. I like thinking about Tauntauns, and I don't really care about your snowspeeder.
All right, this is No Cave, Catherine Infalente. This one was pretty cool.
I really like this one. It
was kind
along
of
that
a,
same palette I was just describing of kind of, this is
kinda
similar
like
to
a-
Naturalist on Hoth.
Or it's kind of like the Exogorth version of Hunger. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just kind
you're
of
seeing
exploring the
things-
universe through the eyes of a creature.
And it was very cool because it answered a couple of questions.
So we had about the Exogorth.
Because we were like, well, they would still be in space inside of the Exogorth. We've always said that.
Yeah, apparently they live forever.
Yeah, this one is just barely getting to adolescence,
It was
and
like
it's
a
like
few thousand years old.
yeah, and it talked about being a millennia, being around for millennia, and just it was crazy. It talked about
But apparently they have some sort of...
they have an ability to create life in a weird way.
It's like borderline telepathic, but
Mm-hmm.
they can communicate somehow to other creatures, and they have a high amount of control over the regulatory system that this creature is able to create oxygen within itself just to make its environment livable for
Yeah, it was
humans.
interesting because, and pretty quickly too, because as they were getting ready to leave and the Exogorth was sad that they were leaving, it said, please wait, I'm almost done making oxygen for you. So that was really cool. They're very deep. They're very much like the Ents from Lord
It
of the
was cool.
Rings.
It was cool.
A very cool concept.
All right, Lord Vader will see you now. John Jackson Miller.
This one was fun because as a John Jackson Miller fan and as a Ray Sloan fan, that's a character that's been created since Disney took the reins. Ray Sloan's, I want to say she's in the Aftermath trilogy. She ends up being a Grand Admiral eventually, actually. But it was cool that she was very passionate about her people. Some Thrawn, not attachment, but the way that she led her people from out of care versus out of fear was very cool. And so I did like that. Anyone that gives Admiral Piet the business, I'm for it. So it was cool because she just talked to Vader, straight up. Hey, what can I do to help my people? So that was a cool story. It was cool to see her again.
All right, Virgins, Tracy Dion.
This was a great story.
This was a cool story. I like that. It was interesting because we've always talked about how Dagobah is a planet that's strong in the Force, and how what they're calling the Cave of Evil is a Force nexus of sorts, especially the dark side of the Force. But I'd never really thought of those places as having a life of their own, and a sentience and a awareness of what's going on and what they're doing. So it looks like, based on this story, that the Cave of Evil isn't just like a happenstance location that, you kind of go in there and you get... It's almost like you put your name in one of those Facebook quizzes and they shoot out like a randomly generated thing.
Right.
That's like, oh, this is your fortune. That like everything that is put out in the Cave of Evil is something that's handcrafted based on the fears, and it's meant to be tormenting.
It's meant to torment you, and the anxieties and fears that you put off,
feed the
it.
cave, make it stronger,
And,
and somehow make it more aware.
And so very, very cool stuff. It talks about, this is pretty ballin'. It talks about Yoda going there every few years to basically, kind of like in the Clone Wars, he has to face the dark side within himself. He goes in there to basically expel his fears.
He goes there to be presented with like almost a corporeal form of his fears so that he can combat them. It's cool because it explores the way that Yoda on purpose takes Luke to the cave so that Luke can see his fears. It talks about recognizing Qui-Gon's presence there.
Yeah.
So cool stuff. Very cool stuff.
Yeah. Cool idea and story. This next one was magnifique. This one was great. Tooth and Claw by Michael Cog.
Yeah, Cog.
And this one's about Bosk, which you guys know how I feel about Bosk.
It was a cool story. Very cool story.
But basically, Bosk, as he's getting ready to get the transmission from Vader to bring the bounty hunters in because the Empire can't do their job of getting the Falcon, Bosk is on his way to hunt some Wookiees, which is as he is wont to do. And it talks about how much he hates the Wookiees, and, it talks about that he believes that Wookiees eat the eggs of Trandoshans as the desserts at their finest feasts, which is propaganda, it turns out. But there is a Wookiee that has been freeing other Wookiee slaves and is very, very good at it. And this Wookiee's name is Chainbreaker. So it was cool because he's hunting for Chainbreaker. And long story short, I guess we're going full spoiler here. This was a cool reveal. But he gets to the front of the ship. And when he gets it to I picture being a very big vessel. And he gets to the command center, and it's the least Wookiee part of the ship. And he's wondering, if you're not in the know, Wookiees graft nature very, very much into everything that they do. Like even their lightsaber handles.
Well, the ship was made out of wood.
Yeah.
That's,
which is freaking cool.
That's freaking cool.
He talks about going into the atrium and there being Rocher trees, which
trees actually growing inside the ship.
Those are the huge trees that if you only watch the movies or whatever, in Revenge of the Sith, Episode 3, when the droids attack the Wookiees and the clones, surprise them and they're there with them, those huge trees are growing within the ship.
Pretty big ship. Got
to be massive. So he gets to the bridge. And he goes in and he's shocked by how clean it is, and there's almost no arboreal things going on. And so he's like, what's with the lack of trees? And it says, someone that doesn't have the silhouette of a Wookiee turns and says,
They speak in the native tongue.
Yeah, Dosh.
Yeah.
And it talks about, is that you, Bosk, or something like that? And he's taken aback. And a Trandoshan with the same skin color, the same eye color, the same marking and skin pattern steps into the light, and it's a Trandoshan. And he's like, yo, what the freak is going on here? And he's like, what are you doing with these Wookiees? And it says, I've been waiting for you, brother. And he's like, yo, what? Because Bosk's name is something along the lines of one who devours his prey. That's like his name.
Yeah.
If you go by his native tongue. And the reason he got that name is because his father, Kradosk, named him that because Bosk, out of his clutch of eggs,
he was born first
and ate all the other Trandoshan babies. And instead of being mad at him, his dad was like, that's my boy, and named him Bosk. Well, it turns out one of these babies, they were all thrown out or whatever, and one of these survived and was raised by Wookiees. And so Bosk's sister is the Moses Trandoshan going back to get all the Wookiees out of Egypt.
Good old Stumpy.
Yeah. So she's got because
she's got
she has a gimp arm because I guess he had bitten it.
Take my strong hand.
Take my strong hand. He had bitten it off when she was a baby, and because it wasn't destroyed as an adult, because they can regenerate their arms, their limbs and stuff once they're adults.
Anyway.
Very, 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 very cool
Longest story in the book, but a very cool story. All right, Stet by Daniel Jose Older.
It was okay. Daniel Jose Older is one of my favorite new Star Wars authors. Some people hit or miss, but I really liked Last Shot, the Lando Han Solo novel that he did. It was a cool concept, but the editing droid having to go back and edit everything was kind of annoying.
I found it slightly amusing as a part-time copy editor.
Yeah.
Especially when she was like, delete Grandpa.
Yeah, that was funny.
I felt it in my soul.
Yeah.
But pretty okay story. Wait for It by Zoraida Cordova.
Obviously, this was fantastic because the main character was Boba Fett. One of the things that was cool, I don't know if this was new, but it was new to me, I want to say. But apparently, in their younger years, Bosk, Dengar, and Boba Fett made up a trio bounty hunter team called the Crate's Claw, which is a cool shout out to Crate Dragons. So that was really cool, in Tatooine. So I really liked that. And they were like talking about how hard it is to get Han, and Han and Chewie had beaten Bosk before and Dengar, and the Empire and everybody around them underrates Han Solo for how slippery he is. And Bosk was like, so maybe Crate's Claw will ride again. And Boba Fett was like, basically, one of the cooler inner dialogues was, I'm not the boy anymore, I'm a man. And the little boy that's holding his father's helmet inside is the reason that I am as good as I am.
Yeah.
So that was very cool. You kind of get an inside scoop. I didn't like that the reader of this book didn't try at all to have a Boba Fett accent. He was like, yeah, no thanks. And I was like, that's not how Boba Fett sounds. That's not how the Force works. That was fun. Number 26, Standard Imperial Procedure, is the story of how Boba Fett gets Slave One into the garbage disposal or whatever, so that he's shot out into the vacuum of space. A very cool concept.
Long story short, he did it.
Yep. It was good, though. This next one was very good. This one is called There Is Always Another by Mackenzie Lee, and this is Force Ghost Obi-Wan Kenobi and how he fights his inner demons with how much of Anakin he sees in Luke, but also reminding himself and at times Yoda how much of, in how many places Luke is already more mature and more in tune with the Force than Anakin.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. There was moments that were actually pretty emotional.
Yeah.
Where it talks about, I wish I could have done better by my friend.
Yeah.
And
it shows how much responsibility Obi-Wan takes for the way that Anakin turned out. It was also interesting to see how, thinking about the training on Dagobah, where he said, at this point, Anakin wouldn't have made it. He said if he couldn't have pulled his X-Wing out of the swamp, he was completely confident that Anakin would have found a way to walk off the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, Luke displays infinitely more patience than Anakin. But it was really sad because it talks about Yoda snaps off at Luke about, this is what happened to Vader or whatever. And Obi-Wan, for the sake of trying to convince Luke not to leave Dagobah, does not have a retort for Yoda, but internally he basically says, you and all the other masters set him up to fail. He was never given an easy life. He was never, it talks about...
He was given standards that nobody else could have lived up to.
Yeah. And one of the parts that, as I was listening to it, I was kind of like kind of choking up, was when he said that before he even knew who he was as a Jedi, he was given this other life to be in charge of. And he says he can remember...
Waking up in the
middle of the night, and Anakin was sleeping on the floor next to his bed because he had lost his mom and then he had lost Qui-Gon, and he wanted to sleep in Obi-Wan's room so he would know he wouldn't be gone in the morning.
Yeah.
That was rough. But probably one of my favorites. All right.
Very good. Fake it till you make it. Very amusing.
Let's go. This one was great.
It's me, Jackson.
It's me, Jackson. This is about Jackson the Letty.
Yeah.
Which
so.
Obviously like a space rabbit. And
big long ears like this.
Yeah. It was funny because basically he's trying to do a startup business to go... He really is a copycat of Lando. He sees Lando stealing stuff. He tries to steal stuff. Not as good at it. He sees Lando trying to go legit and making even more money, so he tries to do the same thing. Lando's not having it. Obviously, we know as the reader, it's because Lando is stressed out because the Empire is now on Cloud City. And basically, at the end of the story, instead of stealing a ton of money, which would have helped him start his little business, he helps a family in distress get off of Cloud City and out of the Empire's hands. So he does the right thing, and he says... A real
roundabout story.
Yeah. If it's good enough for Lando Calrissian, it's good enough for me. And then he says, and don't go telling everybody because we can't have people thinking that it's for free all the time. Or something like that. But he has a very, Bugs Bunny meets Sid the Sloth voice, and I'm a huge fan, and I really need a Black Series figure of this right now, Hasbro. Fake It to Make It was great. But What Does He Eat is the story of a Deveronian chef, written by S.A. Chakraborty. That is a crazy name.
Yeah.
And it's about a chef that is the one that has to prepare the meal for Vader when he meets Han and Leia. And that's all there is to it. There was a cool little twist at the end where her sous chef said, basically she had come from a family that were...
She was a Deveronian.
Deveronian, and all her family dealt with a bunch of pharmaceuticals and stuff. And she could have tried to poison him. Mm-hmm. And she said it wasn't worth it to kill...
If you're a connoisseur of the dark side, would never have worked.
Yeah. Okay. Beyond the Clouds is a story by Lillian Rivera, and it's a story about a young female bounty hunter that is currently on Cloud City, and she's just trying to get little jobs to build her way up, and she's a huge fan of Boba Fett.
She likes what Boba Fett's doing. Surprise, surprise. She gets a conscience when she falls into a relationship and she decides to do the rebellion thing. That's the synopsis of that story. So No Time for Poetry, Austin Walker, Dengar and IG-88, very cool coming-of-age story. No, I'm just kidding. Dengar and IG-88...
Two old people.
Basically working together to try and find Han. They end up stumbling onto something else. They get swindled by Boba Fett, who put out fake coordinates, and then within his own database put more fake coordinates, so when people tried to search those out... they got swindled yet again.
Yep. Which was kind of cool because that alluded to Wait For It, because it talks about the end of Wait For It. Boba Fett put in his fake credentials so that Bosk and Dengar thought they were working together. And so it was cool that those two correlated later in the book.
Also cool that there are parts where IG-88 was thinking to himself about how superior he was, and then sometimes Dengar would still do stuff that IG-88 didn't know how he did it. So there was a little bit of a balance act there between the superiority of just programming and being a droid and being able to see all things at all times, and then
being able to improvise.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dengar is a very mysterious character. I would love to get more about him.
All right, Best Ben Escape, Martha Wells. It focuses on the escape from Cloud City for an Ugnaught clan. Pretty all right story. Nothing outstanding.
Kuiil wasn't in it. Spoiler alert. That's what I was hoping for. Didn't get it.
Faith in an Old Friend, Brittany Ann Williams. It focuses on L337, which is the sidekick droid from Solo.
That's the very first time I've heard somebody say that.
What?
L337.
It's in there.
I know. I always say L337. Very cool.
Anyway. Yeah, so it talks about how she's programmed into the computer for the Falcon, but it kind of has a pull from Greek mythology where you have the Fates, who are their sisters, and they kind of think as a unit. It's very similar to the Fates. But it's like they call themselves the Millennium Collective, I think, and it's...
her and the Falcon talking to each other.
And then there's two other computer minds that were programmed, and one of them was a like a protocol droid or something. I don't remember. But anyway, there were three droids, and one of them was constantly like learning. The other one was a bit more normal, and then there was L337, who was kind of the driving personality. And so it talked about basically the Falcon seeing Lando and her trying to communicate with Lando to let him know that she was still there, and how they sent Treadwell, that little repair droid that you see on Hoth, to go to talk to the city computer to let them know that the hyperdrive had been disabled by the Empire, so that when they're trying to escape, they knew to reactivate.
Oh, wow.
So it was all down to L337 talking to the other droid personality within the Falcon that had a thing for Treadwell, so that she talked to him and got him to go to the city computer.
That's a cool concept.
It was very cool fitting together of all the pieces.
All right, Duan Batu. This one's about Wilro Hood, the ice cream guy.
Yeah, so the guy with the Camtono. Basically, he's a delivery guy. He doesn't know what it is. And then there's a Rhodian, I'm pretty sure, that tries to get him to do delivery. But then the Empire comes and he tries to get the thing because it's obviously very valuable. I think the guy was going to get like 50,000 credits total for delivering it. And try to take it back, and then there's like a tussle over it, and it probably ends up breaking. And so he's like, all right, good luck, and then takes off. And so the guy and this girl pilot, they're making their escape, and she's like, where to? And he says, anywhere but Batu.
That's pretty cool. I always did like Wilbur Hood.
Yeah.
And it's cool that the Mandalorian gave more importance to the ice cream maker. This next one is Into the Clouds by Karen Strong, and it is about a young lady named Jalen.
Jalen series. So it was an okay story. It was about a wealthy heiress to I think like a mining empire. Like her father was very well to do, and he was a gambler or whatever, and she was just trying to find her identity. An actual coming of age story where she makes her escape. Nothing too substantive or too adding to the main Empire story.
The next one is The Witness by Adam Christopher, and it is about the story of the stormtrooper Dina Lorne, but her stormtrooper number is TK27342.
Yeah, not TK421, so who cares? But
and why isn't he at his post?
Ironically, she was also not at her post. So this was about a stormtrooper who worked her way up, and she was basically to the point within Vader's fist that she was one of the two main stormtroopers accompanying Vader. What I didn't like is that she was another one of the stormtroopers that's like, I don't want to do that anymore.
I'm not, losing faith.
Anyway, which I was like, if you're going to be one of Vader's two, do you think... Anyway.
He would feel those feelings.
Right, I digress. But anyway, it ended up being an okay, pretty cool story because she's apparently terrible with directions. And as she kept trying to escape, she kept like stumbling onto the scene where Vader and Anakin are fighting.
You mean Luke?
What did I say? Vader. Oh yeah, Vader and Luke. And so she sees, Luke pulling out his lightsaber and they're fighting, and then she sees Luke getting backhanded with 18,000 objects from across the room. And
dude, one of my favorite scenes from Empire is when he points with both of his hands on the lightsaber and he's throwing things with the saber.
Yeah.
Very Dance Dance Revolution move there.
And then, she's just basically Lion King 1.5ing the whole thing with
nice.
With Luke and Vader.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool to see that from a third perspective and her trying to figure out how to leverage the information, and she ends up basically helping Lobot organize some of the extract.
Yeah, why wasn't there a Lobot story?
There should have been a Lobot story.
I digress. Han and Lobot both got shafted. Okay, The Man Who Built Cloud City by Alexander Freed.
Yeah, I still have no idea what this story was supposed to be about. It was about a crazy person who was like acquaintances with Lando, who was convinced that he was the king of Cloud City and that Lando was actually his regent. And then the story just followed that. And
it's really...
He was trying to get escorted. Like some guy was told by Lando to escort this guy off.
Right.
And so this guy's just raving lunatic, but completely confident in who he is. And so the guy that's supposed to be escorting him goes to rescue his family, who have all been burnt to cinders. And so now he's teetering on the edge of madness.
What's his name, Luke?
I wish. It would have been more interesting. But basically this guy's teeter-tottering on the edge of madness, and then the guy that thinks he's king convinces the other guy that he's the prince of assassins and that they have a chance of fighting against the Empire together.
Yeah.
So it's just like two crazy folks in Cloud City.
Wild. All right, we're getting to the end. Here we go.
There was one quote in there
that
was like kind of the shape of Empire altogether, where he was saying maybe this wasn't a terrible story. Maybe it was just the part of a triumphant story where it looks like all was lost.
Right,
it was kind of...
Yeah, because when Empire came out, people were like, what the heck, George?
Yeah.
So
it was kind of cool wrapping that up.
You cut off Luke's hand, you killed Han Solo. Darth Vader is Luke's dad, or is he?
Yeah.
Imagine the stress for those next 4 years until Return of the Jedi came out. Number 38, The Backup Plan by Ann Toole. And it's about people who drive cloud cars.
It was okay.
Here's the little snippet from Del Rey. Tal didn't dare breathe a sigh of relief. Lando's decision to liberate the princess hadn't included the Imperials capturing their people. She needed information, she needed help, and most of all, she needed a plan.
It was basically this chick that was working to kind of smooth things over now that the Empire basically had control of Cloud City.
Right.
And she had a gay love affair with somebody who was an Imperial officer, and so they kind of worked together to dupe whoever was in charge there that wasn't Vader, and then that was it.
Yeah. trying to work together, but also can't work too much together because one is an Imperial and one is not.
Yeah.
So,
Surprise, surprise, the Imperial betrayed the Empire.
yeah, that was an ongoing theme.
Yeah, I'm tired of it.
General Veers.
General Veers. Maximilian Veers.
That's the man. Okay.
Right-Hand
Right-Hand Man by Lydia Kang.
This was
About 2-1B.
an excellent story. Like, definitely worth sitting through
Yeah.
the preceding few stories.
The medical droid that repairs Luke Skywalker's hand at the end of Empire Strikes Back. He shuts the little
Right.
box and does the little finger nerve test. Mm-hmm. And,
He's the same droid that repairs him on Hoth.
right.
And it says that he's like, do you remember I was the one that helped you on Hoth?
He's
And-
probably a little irritated with Luke at this point.
Well, and Luke says, yeah, I specifically requested you. So they kind of have this ongoing thing. And it's basically
Be careful, sir.
a beautiful moment of reflection where... Can you quit touching
I'm sorry,
my knee?
I'm popping my knuckles.
Where... Oh my god. Stop touching my leg.
You're all the way under there.
Luke is basically unpacking everything that's happened to him.
Right.
And he's
Droids are great listeners.
saying that, maybe you shouldn't replace my hand. Maybe it was destiny that my hand got cut off. And 2-1B's like, in certain cultures, they cut off people's hands for stealing things. Mm-hmm. That is not our culture, nor is that kind of punishment permissible. And so he's just kind of walking him through and helping him unpack, what the healing process might be. And he said, I can give you your hand back if you consent to it, but replacing something that's been lost won't necessarily make you whole. And so it's just kind of helping Luke walk through the things, and Luke's reflecting and he's saying how foolish and impatient he was and how he could have been better to learn from Yoda when he was on Dagobah and seeing how everything went wrong and how he rushed into this trap. And I just think it was a beautiful...
It's a cool 2020. Hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
But 2-1B is the voice of reason and everything. Of
Right.
Maybe we did do the right thing.
And there was an interesting piece in there where 2-1B had, because he was the one who had repaired Luke on Hoth, he was talking about how his resting heart rate was like 24. Mm-hmm. And how when Leia had come into the room on Hoth, his heart rate had elevated to 90 BPM. But when Leia came into the medical room on the frigate, his heart rate didn't elevate at all. And that showed how much his perspective on things had changed. What it was important to him had changed.
Yeah, thank God.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting because as a viewer, I always think, I just assume that Yoda's right every time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, you're rushing off. You need to finish your training. But
maybe that failure did more for Luke than staying on Dagobah could have.
Because Yoda does end up saying later, failure is the greatest teacher. Mm-hmm. And Luke running off willy-nilly, unprepared to face what we thought was the strongest character in the galaxy, is the heart of what Luke Skywalker is. And it's one of the reasons that people have beef with Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, who's butthurt towards, failure and everything's beyond his reach. It's weird to me that the same guy that rescued Darth Vader and at this point knew more about who Vader was and the atrocities of the Empire could see Ben Solo and go, he's beyond saving.
Yeah.
Anyway,
great story.
Cool story. And then finally you have The Will Strike Back by Tom Engelberger. And it's really just kind of a comedy on, writing of the
opening crawl.
The opening crawl, which is the one thing that is cool is that the writers of the Wills are writing down the events of A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back, and that's how we have them, is basically the idea. I did not like the Star Trek reference within Star Wars. That really pissed me off. Keep your Trek out of my wars. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was like, is Star Trek canon in Star Wars now?
Yeah, I didn't like that at all.
I did like
But it did bring Lumpy.
Yeah, it did reference Lumpy.
Which
that was funny.
They talk about Lumpawaru and I want to say in the Aftermath trilogy, but specifically calling him Lumpy was a cool shout out. So those are the 40 stories. Top three.
Top three for me are going to be Disturbance, where, Palpatine's exploring
the Force Vision from Palpatine.
Disturbance in the Force. Vergence, which is the Dark Side Cave. And Right-Hand Man with 2-1B.
Okay. I could agree on all three of those, but just for variety's sake, I'll go with the different three. Hunger was really great. Wampa POV, read by Sam Witwer. You can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong.
Again, we need to figure out if we need to see if Mark Oshiro is going to do more Star Wars stuff because he was really good. I really liked that. Okay, so that was number 1. Number 2 was probably Tooth and Claw. I really liked the Bosk story.
I loved that story. And I liked the exploration of Wookiee space travel and technology. That was very cool.
I can do Wookiees and Trandoshans all day.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, I will go with There Is Always Another. That one was probably the one that tugged on my heartstrings the most. Honorable mention for Fake It Till You Make It because Jackson. So there you go. There is our read-through review top 3. We're not going to give you a bottom 3 because we're Star Wars fans and we're not going to hate on our own people. I guess I did tell you my least favorite during the read-through. The idea was okay. Anyways, from a certain point of view, Empire Strikes Back. And then in 4 years, we'll probably get Return of the Jedi. And if things hold up, in 2055, we'll get The Force Awakens. So
see you then.
We'll see. It was just the 20th anniversary of Phantom Menace and nothing came out. So I'm hoping for 25. I know that's less stories, but I don't want to wait 15 extra years. You know what I mean? So anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. And we will see you on the flippity flip. May the Force be with you.
And remember, the only family you have here is me.
See you next time.